The Tampa Bay Bucs travel to New Orleans on Sunday to face their NFC South division rival Saints. New Orleans is currently installed as a 3.5-point favorite in this game on BETDAQ. 53 is the total. Now, 3 weeks ago, we were looking at this game as a big game in the NFC playoff race, but these teams have each lost their last 3 games, so now, most likely, they're just playing for pride. I mean, Tampa is not mathematically eliminated from the playoffs yet, but at 6-7, even if they win out, highly, highly unlikely at this point. They need lots of help. New Orleans is mathematically eliminated at 5-8. So it'll be interesting to see. I think motivation is going to play a big factor in this game, and the last 2 or 3 weeks of the season can be a little tricky to handicap because the motivations can vary from team to team. I mean, some of these guys are already planning for the offseason. Some of them have packed it in. Some of these guys are still playing hard. Some teams are right in the playoff race. Others obviously aren't. Some of the best teams over the next couple of weeks are going to be resting some of their best players. So this isn't the only game we're going to deal with like this, but I definitely think this is a game where, listen, if I was sure that New Orleans was going to be motivated, if this game were in week 4, we'd say the New Orleans Saints at home minus 3.5 against the worst secondary in the NFL, because that's exactly what Tampa Bay is. You'd say that's a great bet. I mean, we know over the last couple of years there's been no better bet in the NFL than the New Orleans Saints at home. But I don't know. The Saints have lost 3 straight games, and the cloud of that bounty scandal that's really followed them around all season, that's still ongoing. Just this week, Paul Tagliabue, former NFL commissioner, revoked the suspensions of the players involved, but Drew Brees and Joe Vitt are still having to talk to the media about it. You just get the feeling it's been a distraction all year. I have a feeling once the season ends, the New Orleans players and coaches will admit as much, that it's been a big distraction all year. And after New Orleans got blown out on the road last week against the New York Giants, they've now lost 8 games. Are they really going to want it? I mean, are they going to be there on Sunday? Are they going to show up and play hard? I think Tampa is, because I've been very impressed with Tampa this season, how hard they've played consistently under Greg Schiano. I know he's not going to win it. I know a lot of talk lately has been about the coaches in Indianapolis, maybe Bruce Arians and Chuck Pagano sharing the award. Of course, Pagano has missed most of the season after being diagnosed with leukemia. Or Pete Carroll has also been talked about as a candidate for Coach of the Year. But let's not overlook Greg Schiano. Tampa was terrible last year, and more than that, they seemed to quit on their coach. They lost their final 10 games last season. They were 1-9 against the spread in those games. They were not a high-character team. Schiano came in, ran off some of what he perceived as attitude problems, even though those guys were productive players. Guys like Kellen Winslow, Brian Price, a few weeks ago, Aqib Talib. And what the result has been is a team that has played hard all year. There are some deficiencies there, no question about it, most notably in the secondary. As we mentioned, the Bucs do have the worst secondary in the NFL. They're allowing 311 pass yards per game. They made Nick Foles look like a Pro Bowler last week in that loss to the Philadelphia Eagles. So, do you have any faith in that defense on the road in the Superdome, facing Drew Brees, this New Orleans Saints offense that is second in the league in pass yards per game, 298 pass yards per game? No, you can't. You can't have any faith in the Bucs there. If you like the Bucs in this spot, I'm guessing your argument involves a mixture of the Bucs are very good on offense and New Orleans is very bad on defense, which is true. And also, you probably think that New Orleans is not going to, and you don't want to say not try, because of course these guys are going to be out there trying. I mean, every guy out there is playing for their job, playing for next season, whether it's going to be New Orleans or somewhere else. But you get the feeling that the air has sort of been let out of the balloon in New Orleans, and maybe that'll be the case in Tampa too, because their tough loss last week to Philadelphia, that knocked them out of the playoff race. So we'll see if they can respond to that. But Tampa has struck me as a little bit of a tougher team this year than New Orleans, and maybe that's not necessarily all the Saints' fault. I know this bounty scandal will be tough for any team to deal with, and they've certainly dealt with it all year. Tampa has been one of the best teams in the entire NFL to back this season, 9-3-1 against the spread. We mentioned their offense, 5th in the NFL in points scored. They're very balanced. They run it as well as they pass it. And New Orleans is balanced on defense too. They're horrible everywhere. Last in the league in yards allowed, last in rush defense, 30th in pass defense, 30th in points allowed. The Saints defense all season has ranked at the very bottom of the league in total defense, and they're still right there. So we expect a shootout in this game. First time these two teams played this season, New Orleans pulled out a 35-28 win in Tampa. And I expect to see a similar score, which is why I'm sort of surprised that the total isn't a little bit higher. Total is 53 here. expected the total to be around 55 or 56. I know we're talking really high for an NFL game. Anytime you get higher than 50 for an NFL game, you're talking about a big total. But we got two bad defenses. Tampa, especially in the secondary. Bucs actually have a good front seven on defense. Two bad defenses, two good offenses. That fast track in the Superdome. We know the Saints offense is going to play well. Pretty sure the Bucs offense is going to play well. So, hey, I lean towards over 53. I mean, a lot of trends point towards it. The over 4-0 in Tampa's last 4 road games. 8-2 in Tampa's last 10 overall. The over 7-2 in New Orleans' last 9 home games. 5-1 in New Orleans' last 6 games versus NFC South opponents. I could go on. Just about every trend you could find point towards the over. And I don't see any reason not to ride that and make a small play on over 53 here. You know, if you're going to have to bet this game, like I said, it's a tough game to call to me because you're just guessing at motivation here. If this game were in week 4 where both these teams still had everything to play for, I would really like New Orleans minus 3.5 at home. And I guess still, you have to assume that the Saints are going to come out with great effort. And, I mean, you can't bet against the Saints at home facing the worst secondary in the NFL, can you? I wouldn't do it. If I had to make a play here, feet to the fire, New Orleans minus 3.5. The bet I like a little more is over 53.